go. It was a little while ago that I had a fascinating conversation with Willem Petzer, an activist who was putting together a organization, the Taxpayers Union of South Africa, encouraging a way of fighting back against abuse of taxpayers' money here. Willem, with what happened in KZN and parts of Gauteng last week, I was, not last week, earlier this month rather, I've been wondering whether you've had a flood of new people wanting to join your organization.
Yes, well, Alec, the new members have been steady during that time, but one thing that we did realize during the time was that people are once again tired of paying tax to an incompetent government that wastes tax money via misspending, corruption, and mismanagement. And all the things that happened with the riots and so on actually highlighted just how the state is even incapable of performing its core duties to its citizens, not just its secondary duties like in the socialist state that we do live in, healthcare and so forth, but the very essence of what makes a state, and that is protecting its citizens. And the state was unable to protect its citizens during the riots, and the community members, the citizens themselves, had to jump in and do that protection themselves. So, that being said, as we are saying at the Taxpayers Union, South Africans are absolutely tired of paying taxes into the system, and that's why we want to help um, pay as little as possible taxes, to put it as simple as possible.
And I've thought about you, and I was actually thinking a lot about my family. That's where I come from. People who were left to their own devices. We even had the chief executive of the Maritzburg Chamber of Business telling us that she had to beg the army and the police to come and defend the business operations, which they didn't do for 5 days. And when the army finally arrived, they didn't look after businesses, they looked after government installations. So that very basic issue, if you are a taxpayer and you're not being secured, you said you're going to be working through the courts. Is that a legal argument that can now be brought against the government, i.e., for your motivation for actually not wasting taxes?
Of course, on a much larger scale, yes, Alec. But what we've been working on at this very moment is we sat together, the directors, and we said to each other, we don't have as much time to build all these massive legal arguments. We need to start making a big difference today. So we actually started working on something where we want to help all individuals and people who draw a salary, like employees, to pay as little as possible taxes. And there is a way that businesses and employees can work together in order to pay as little as possible taxes. And we want to get as many as possible businesses on board with this. So to explain it to you, well, before I explain to you the system, I think South Africa is a unique case in the sense that most places in the world, like in America, for example, when people pay less taxes than they should. Like, for example, Jeff Bezos, who didn't pay taxes for 4 years, and he's probably the most hated man on Twitter right now. People don't like it because they think it's unfair, because there is, philosophically speaking, a social contract between the citizens of a country and the government, where the citizens need to pay what is due for them, and the government or the state needs to provide what they should. So people see an individual like Jeff Bezos as in breach of that social contract. But in South Africa, the the shoe is on the other foot. Yeah, it is the state that is in breach of that social contract. So yeah, people want to see what Jeff Bezos and these people did in order to pay, well, basically zero taxes, and we want to um, learn or educate people how to actually do that. So there is a way, a legal way, that one of our directors, Stefan, who is the chartered accountant as well as the financial planner, he's actually double qualified for both. He, in his private capacity, helped quite a few businesses to restructure their payment structure in a way that is legally known as a salary forfeit. And what we want to do is get all our members and the businesses that are also members to actually restructure their businesses in such a way that the employees pay as little as possible taxes. And to put it simple for you, what this basically means is, for example, a company can have benefits for its employees, like for example, medical insurance. Now, the law is written in a much broader sense that there's much more benefits that a company can give its employees. So, what we want to do in our professional capacity as chartered accountants and as our legal team, which is led by Johan Westhuizen, which is a fiduciary practitioner, put together for each business a unique individual plan to restructure the salary forfeit where they pay the employees less cash and more benefits. And at the end of the day, it will work out, the expenses will work out for the business exactly the same as it would have if they paid the expenses as a salary, but the employees will pay much less tax. And I think that is the first crucial step that we are going to work towards in the next month or two in order to get the businesses on board to start doing this. And we have the team that can help them set up the structure and that can help them. I'm not going to claim that I have the legal knowledge or the knowledge of the accounting to do this myself, but I've got the people within the organization that do have these expertise. So this will be our first step, and this will be how we make a difference immediately today.
That's interesting. So you're using the law, you're using what's there at the moment, but because of the apathy, perhaps, or because we haven't been that angry about paying taxes in the past, no one's really implemented it, but it's always been there. Now you are going to help them to address it.
Of course. Well, actually, one of our directors, Stefan de Wet, he worked for SARS. I think I might be wrong, but it was up until 1991 or 1990. He worked for SARS as a senior tax officer, and he was actually one of the senior members of SARS there that wrote many of the laws that we do have today. And it's very complex, as in many of these so-called loopholes for very rich people, you can't really take them away, because as soon as you take them away, um, the economy doesn't really function as it should. For example, a person isn't taxed on capital gains on the stock market, which some people think that these very rich people should be taxed on these gains, but it's impossible to tax a person on his own business that is growing because there's no money in the bank for him to pay taxes. For example, this is a very, very simple example. So there are many of these
No, but Willem,
structures
hang
or
on, hang on, hang
loopholes.
on. There is capital gains tax. I don't know how they're informing you there. If you sell a share on the stock market, you make a
Yes,
capital
but
gain,
only
you
if you
you
sell
pay
it.
tax on it.
Only if you
Oh,
sell it, not
oh, got it.
not
Okay.
if you
Hmm.
not if you hold it. That's what
If
I'm
you
saying.
keep holding
But
it, yeah.
this is just a simple example. This is not what we are going
Hmm.
to be implementing within the businesses. So if you hold your share, you're not paying taxes, and then people think that, for example, someone like Jeff Bezos that increased their share or increased their wealth by $75 billion should pay taxes on this $75 billion, but they're not. So many of these so-called loopholes are written into law because that's how the economy functions. And someone who's an absolute expert, which I do not claim to be, like Stefan, who's our other director, can use these things to help businesses pay as little as possible taxes, and actually help individuals within these businesses who are employees to pay as little as possible taxes through salary forfeit contracts between the employee and the employer. And this is what we want to help businesses do as soon as possible in order to get people to save, depending on their income, maybe 10, 20, 30, up until 100,000 rands in tax money, as our calculations have basically shown us.
It's a different approach. How I haven't seen any coverage of your association in the mass media, for instance. How have you been getting the word around?
Um, well, basically through my social media and basically the people who follow me thus far. We've got an email list, a WhatsApp uh, broadcast list, a Telegram group.
So it's viral. It's
Basically,
completely viral.
It's completely viral. I mean, we've got about 25,000 members right now, and we have been very silent for the past month and a half, 2 months, because we have been putting together the system that I'm talking about right now in the
Mm.
background, and we've also been building our call center in the background. So as soon as we are ready to publicly launch this, I'll make another video on YouTube, which I guess will go viral, especially when I tell people, listen, if you are a employee that gets a salary for a living, then you can pay much less in taxes if we help you and your employer implement these structures within the company.
Fascinating. Willem, good talking with you again, and look forward to chatting when you have all of those ducks in a row. How long off are we talking?
Well, basically, the only thing that needs to happen before we can launch this is we need to be able to receive debit orders. So we're basically just waiting for the bank to accredit us, or I don't even know what the correct English word for this is, but basically just to um,
Admin processes.
it's just admin processes. I don't know what the word for it is, but we had
Yeah.
to fill in a bunch of forms, and now we're waiting for them.